entitlement.
Woo!
I keep hearing that women act so entitled.
Yeah.
What does that mean? I feel that that's like, Jon. I feel that is something that it's nebulous. Like, what? Give me some examples of how I've been entitled, or how you...
Wow, you want me to beat you up right away?
No, not really. So we can start with what you've heard or seen in other women and examples. Maybe what's most common. What does this mean specifically? I'm assuming you know exactly.
Well, I kind of look at it the way they're talking about it online. Like, traditional women would be entitled because they would have kept themselves for marriage, or maybe only had one boyfriend before they got married, and back 50 years ago probably wouldn't even have had sex. And so I think that women should feel entitled if they have followed traditional guidelines, right? Go ahead.
So my interpretation of what you're saying is that back in the day, or in areas of the country, world, culture, where women kept themselves, let's just say, virgins, they kept their value in that sense, that because they were preserving themselves as a prize for their future husband, that they kept their value up, and therefore they could ask for more.
Well, they technically wouldn't ask for more. I mean, entitlement nowadays means I deserve stuff. I think entitlement back in the day meant that no matter what the lifestyle a woman was kept in the sense that what her husband had, she would be happy with it. Because, and you know, to be honest, back in the day, everybody was poor. I mean, we're in America, and nobody is poor. I mean, even the people that live on the streets are being given tons of stuff from the government. And, you know, we're literally not poor. And so I think that entitlement today is, I need to drive a Lexus or an Infiniti or a Mercedes or a G-Wagon or, you know, whatever it is, you know, a Lamborghini or a Ferrari. You know, it's like, doesn't make a whole lot of sense in that respect. I think women should feel entitled to be treated well. I think they should feel entitled to a good marriage. If they marry a good man, you know, they are entitled to a good marriage. And, you know, we talked about this the other day. When you get married, nobody says, nobody's vows are, I will stay with you if, you know, it's for better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health.
Till
right?
death do us part.
Till death do us part,
yeah.
Right? So it's kind of astonishing, you know, that ladies will get divorced after having kids because they say their husband wasn't upwardly mobile enough, or he wasn't, you know, providing the things that they wanted. Mm-hmm. I mean, human beings actually, you know, you don't have to drive a half hour to go to the health club. You could go for a walk for a half hour one way, and it'd be a half hour the other way, and get a 1 hour workout in, you know?
Yeah.
But nowadays we have the luxury and the capability. You know, we'll just send some entitled women over to Turkey, and they can help clean up the earthquake mess and see all the thousands of people that died and all the destruction in the cities because of the earthquakes, and then bring them back to America. And I think they'll just feel entitled to be in America.
So I'm looking up the definition of entitle, and I made the mistake of clicking through. The first one I found was actually great. And then all the other ones I found have entitle in the definition, which is a horrible way to define something. So I'm trying to find that original definition.
So you mean it's horrible to define a word by using the word to define itself?
Exactly.
What?
Yeah.
How entitled are you? Have word entitlement? You have definition entitlement?
Bias. I have bias.
Bias.
Yeah.
Woo!
Judgment.
Oh, bias, judgment. Judgment.
Something you have a right to do or have.
Something you feel you have a right to do or have.
Or the right to do or have something.
Okay.
Is entitlement. So.
Yeah, that's exactly what I've been saying.
Right? But I just it's helpful to be super clear.
You got a dictionary built in.
But I think what the problem is these days, what I'm hearing, is guys are like, no, you're not entitled to that. Just because you decide you're entitled, that you're meant to have something, doesn't de facto mean that you are. And
well, it doesn't mean you're going to get it. And that's what I said earlier. That women will divorce men because they're not getting the things that they want. And, you know, I'll tell you what, if you have a couple of kids and you divorce the man that helped you make those kids, you're not getting what you want in life. You are on a wretched road to sufferdom. And it's not going to be any fun.
Okay, I have some basic questions though before we explore the rabbit holes. Okay. Do you think that in any relationship there are basic entitlements that a woman across the board can expect? Are there baseline entitlements?
I needed to preload myself with oxygen for this answer.
Yes. Go for it.
Yes, I believe that everybody is entitled to being treated well, right? Now that means when I see you, I say hello. That means if you're hungry, I offer you some food. That means if you're cold, I offer you some clothing, and if it's raining, I offer you some shelter, right? That's the basic human needs, right? I mean, even the people that live on the streets have tents, right? So basic human decency is, in my opinion, is an entitlement that everybody deserves, okay? Now, to the level, okay, so I've actually bought homeless people tents, okay? So it's like, yeah, I found out there was people living down by the river in our town and they needed tents. So I just bought, I don't know what I bought, 20, 30 tents, right? And the person at the Common Cup, we have a charity ministry in our town that's called Common Cup, and she said that was way too many, and I'm like, well, if this happens 5 times, it might happen more times, right? And she's like, yeah. And I'm like, well, just keep them, just keep them for the next people that need them, right? And then we found out there was people in our town that were hungry, and so we bought a semi trailer full of food, and we had it distributed, right? And so, that's common human decency, right? Is helping to provide and also showing an example. So as far as having Louis Vuitton and Gucci and Prada and all these brand names, no, people can buy their shoes at Kmart and Walmart and Target, and they can buy Nikes and Adidas and Reeboks and, things that are affordable and comfortable and will get you through the day, right? People aren't, if I want to upgrade my vehicle, I have to have a way to do it. As a man, there's nobody I get to go to and whine and complain and stomp my feet and say, I need an upgraded vehicle. I have to actually figure out a way to do it, right? And it's the same thing for my wife, right? You have to figure out a way. Now, with our budget together and all that kind of stuff, we've never had cars that break down. We've never had a home with a hole in the roof. I mean, we actually know a person with a hole in their roof right now, and they're not poor, they're not completely broke, they're just, they got a hole in their roof. I'm sure it'll get fixed, right? So, but we've never had that kind of thing in our life. Growing up, you never had that, right? You never had lack.
No, not
right.
anything to note, right?
Right, and neither
We
did
had
I.
our necessities taken care of.
Neither did I. So to the rest of the world, we're wealthy. And people have to keep that perspective. I mean, here we are driving in a car with wireless mics talking on an iPhone that's made in a country where the politicians basically force the people to work. And although we don't appreciate that, we're trying to spread a message, even using these tools. We're trying to spread a message that will help people. And we don't have to appreciate everything that happens in the world. If we could do something about it, we would. And that's kind of a rabbit hole in and of itself.
Yeah.
But if we do our best to support each other and to talk to other people and support other people, we're running, in my mind, a script of common human decency, right?
Yeah.
We're running a program that makes sense for us. And when we go out, we tip well. When we see people that are in need, we help out if we can at the time, because our income goes up and down too. We're part of the mechanism. And I don't feel, personally as a man, I don't feel entitled to anything. Being married to you, I ask you to have common human decency and treat me well, and then I ask you as my wife to treat me like a wife would her husband. And I treat you like my wife.
So I'm just trying to kind of create some baseline, just starting with the definition, and you're basically defining any relationship. Everyone is entitled to fair nice treatment, kind treatment, basic needs being met, and so we're just starting out there.
I can't get into the trends, right? I can't get into the semantics arguments about people, people saying things like, there's all these entitled biatches and blah, blah, blah. Well, those people, everybody lives the life they create, right? And that doesn't mean manifest $1 billion tomorrow. It means that people, if a young woman or a young man feels entitled, well, that's probably because of the way they were raised, right? There was probably things said in the home which sounded like the man or the woman, the husband or the wife, the mom and dad, was dissatisfied in some way, and so they complained, right? Or maybe they got divorced, and then the kids heard, you didn't provide me with a big enough house, you didn't provide me with a nice enough car, we didn't go on enough vacations, I didn't have a big enough diamond ring on my finger.
I think
and kids get programmed by that.
So I'll share a bit of what I think on this topic. So I think there is a natural sense of entitlement, in the sense that how you grew up is how you will naturally expect to have your life be. And so if you grew up like we did in middle class households, that you expect, I think we naturally expect that we're entitled to, just by the nature of who we are, the education that we grew up with, in the education system, and even with our parents, that will be, it's an expectation that we will have that or better.
So that's a standard, right? An expectation is kind of an active desiring, right? And an entitlement, you basically have to rely on somebody else for an entitlement, right? So that's essentially socialism, right? That you're going to look to somebody, the government, your husband, your wife, your parents, your grandparents, to provide you with something that you want.
Okay, I agree.
Okay.
I'm going to keep moving. And what happens is, so someone like me who marries someone in basically
like
the same social economic class, I feel entitled to, just naturally, my expectation is that we will have that.
Your standard is.
My standard is.
Yeah.
But I would say that there is a sense.
Well, if you rely on me to provide it, yeah, then it can be an entitlement.
Right. And if it's how we set up our relationship from the beginning, especially if a man commits to be the primary provider, and the woman is taking care of the household, kids, and so forth, I think it's fair to say that it's fairly natural to have a normal level of entitlement, that how you grew up, and
that's a standard. Again, that's a standard.
It is a standard.
That's not an entitlement.
But
an entitlement is something that somebody hands to you.
It turns into a sense of entitlement.
If you're spoiled, if you're a spoiled suburban white girl.
Well, yeah, what is spoiled? Because
spoiled is being given things you didn't earn. That's how you spoil a child, right? The child acts up and you give them candy so that they be good. That's spoiling the child, right? You're giving them something they didn't earn because you just want them to shut up.
So it seems like I'm trying to interpret this, what's going on.
The layout is a man can only produce what he can produce.
But I'm going to take it a step further though, and then we'll dive in.
Okay.
And I realize I'm conducting this conversation, but I just feel like it needs structure. I think where the sense of entitlement is really becoming an issue is no matter what class you're in, everybody is seeing on social media, on TV for generations now, this level of living that is above average, and it instills a sense of, it raises the standard and somehow is fostering.
Hopefully it raises the standard, right? A lot of it is marketing.
But it is also, how are we getting this sense of entitlement? How is that happening?
Parents that gave their kids things that they didn't earn.
But even
participation trophies, right? You didn't win the game. When I grew up, if you didn't win the game, you hung your head and you walked off the field, and then you went home and you practiced and you became better and better and better. How many parents do we know that their kids jump from sport to sport to sport because I didn't really like that, I'm going to go do this? When I was young, if you played hockey, you played hockey. And you might, if some other sport was in the off season of hockey, you would play that sport. There was no jumping sports. There was no joining gymnastics, quitting and joining dance, and then quitting and then joining soccer, and then quitting and joining softball. There was none of that. Back then, the parents said, if you choose something, you stick with it until you're good at it. Mm-hmm. Right? They didn't go with the kid's feelings. They went with the kid's choice. And then they said, all right, we're going to practice. And dad would be out back pitching, or our mom would be showing some dance moves she learned when she was in dance when she was a young girl, right? And they would be encouraging, and they'd feel bad for a kid that lost a game, but they didn't reward them. They said, you can do better next time. You can get better. Well, there's a large swath of the last couple generations that didn't get that. They got a car when they turned 16. I had to buy my car. You bought your own car when you were able to drive. I got mine when I was 15 because I had a farmer's permit because I lived out in the country, so I could drive. And I had a job. I had a full-time job at 15 years old. So I could buy things like that. And my parents didn't even tell me to go get a job. I wanted more money than they were willing to give me. I had a weekly allowance, and if I asked, I could probably get an extra $10 or $15 or something. But I wanted hundreds of dollars, right? So I made sure that Johnny, taking off too fast.
Surprise, surprise.
Yeah, Tara taught me how to drive. So, if I wanted money, I had to earn it. My parents, like I said, they gave me allowance. I could do jobs. I could split wood. I could mow the lawn. I could do that kind of stuff. And I didn't get, I had to. Part of our chores when we were young, we had to empty all the waste baskets. In the bathrooms, you got the little waste baskets and stuff. We had to clean. We had to vacuum. We had to clean our room. We had to do all these things. That got us allowance when we were little. Mm-hmm. And then once we were strong enough to work outside, we didn't get allowance for the housework anymore. We got an allowance for, like I said, splitting wood, mowing the lawn, cleaning the yard, doing things outside, right? And then if I wanted money beyond that, because my parents only gave me so much money for that, I had to work. So I don't have entitlement. You know that. I have no entitlement whatsoever. I don't think I deserve anything. I'm even excited when you say I'll pay for that. I'm like, wow, I have no entitlement whatsoever. And I believe it's how I was raised, and partially being a guy where I actually enjoy earning my money. I enjoy working. I might not always enjoy the job I'm doing, but I enjoy the process of creating, and if I work for 2 hours or 10 hours or 18 hours a day, I am creating money, right? That's the way I view it.
So in the relationships realm, I think the women in particular get a bad rap for being entitled. But do you think that there's a fair amount of it on the men's side as well?
Well, like I said, there's a couple of generations here that didn't get that kind of school of hard knocks training, right? When I was in high school, everybody had a job. There was a couple of kids that didn't, they might have been in multiple sports and their parents were more wealthy. But, everybody had a job. If you walked into a grocery store, it was all high school age people working after school. If you went to the car wash or the mall or the jewelry store in the mall, there was a shift that started at 4:30 or something like that, 5 o'clock, and that would be the young people from school, that were in high school, and all throughout the town on the weekends, everywhere you went, it was kids working the jobs, and those entry-level jobs, nowadays, they say you need a living wage to work those jobs, but those are just people that don't have the skills to work any higher-level jobs, there might be a lot of people that get upset at that statement, but, it's just the truth,
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be high schoolers working all the jobs. Now we see old people working jobs. Which to me is really sad, and maybe some of them are out because they want to be out in public and they want to do something. But I would venture a guess if you sat down with them, about 80% of them are working because they actually have to generate more income.
Yeah.
And maybe it's because of the lifestyle they want to live, right? Maybe it's because they want to have a vacation once or twice a year or even 3 times, or they want to have that motorhome, or whatever they do, right? They might be working to supplement their pension, their Social Security, their stocks, whatever they have that's paying them, when they retire.
Yeah, there are so many rabbit holes to go down on this.
Well, you asked me if young men were. Do you think young men are entitled as much as young women? Or what are your opinions on it?
I don't encounter as many young men. It's mostly what I'm hearing, right?
Online.
Online.
Yeah.
Yep. And I'm mostly hearing that women have the level of expectation that is just unreasonable. And
can you say that louder? And can I hear that again?
That's what I've been hearing.
Women have an expectation that is what?
Unreasonable.
Yeah, we've dealt with that. It's okay. I mean, a guy has to be able to handle it. Early on, when I started hearing your expectations of me and started thinking you had some entitlement, entitlement is, in my opinion, is negative. It's not a good thing to feel entitled to something, right? Because if it's something you can do for yourself, you just do it. If it's an entitlement, if you feel you're entitled to something, it's something somebody else has to provide for you, which I don't think is correct. I don't think is right. I think, like we said in the beginning, we made vows to each other, for better, for worse, in sickness and health, for richer, for poorer, till death do we part. We didn't say, as long as you're healthy, as long as you're rich, as long as you're strong and give me everything I want, I will stay married to you. And you best believe that women out there best believe that guys take those vows extremely seriously. When a guy says something out loud, he is convicting himself. And guys might say things to get laid, guys might say things to get into a girl's pants. But if that woman holds him accountable, right? The first time I wanted to kiss you, you said no. I was shocked. I mean,
yeah.
Look at this. You didn't want to kiss this? You know, I was literally shocked because I had known you for how long? Months, right? Mm-hmm. We went out to a club together, right? We went out salsa dancing. You know, there was a gal you brought with, obviously for protection, because she must have been part of the Italian mafia. So
apparently,
yeah, she was Italian and part of the mafia, obviously, and so you were protected. But I said I would really like to kiss you, and you said I can't, because technically you had a boyfriend in another country that you hadn't seen for 9 months. So I ultimately respected that, right? Now, I didn't take you out. We rode in your car. I didn't pay for everything, so I didn't have any kind of entitlement. And if I had paid for everything and taken you out in my car, I would have acted like a perfect gentleman. I would have accepted you saying no. I wouldn't have said, I just bought you dinner, I just took you to the club, I just paid for all this. I wouldn't have been a whiny man because I had made the choices I made. I listened to a thing the other day and I heard this guy say, I'm sick and tired of these $150 dates and I don't get a second date, you know? And in my mind, I'm like, all right, loser, you're doing something wrong. You know, this is how guys think, right? Women might feel some feelings for that, even for that guy, and go, oh, that's, you know, that seems like that's not fair. Guys go, F you, dude. How stupid are you? You know, why are you going out for a $150 date? Why aren't you going out for a $8 coffee?
That's another topic that's I've heard out there. You know, there are some women teaching, you know, you need to keep your standards high. Don't go out on a first coffee and walk date. Otherwise, you're
How is a guy going to get to know you and not think that you're just a greedy biatch? Or an entitled greedy biatch, right? Those women aren't getting married. Those women are getting ghosted, right? And they're putting themselves in a position where they might feel like they need to give something because the guy just bought an expensive dinner and a bottle of wine. And if the guy's smart, he bought 3 bottles of wine. Because guys know, you get women drunk, in general, you get what you want. That's something women need to know too. They should not be on a date where they drink. There should be no alcohol on the first date, probably for the first 5 dates, because you do not want to be influenced into something that you do not want long term. It's so critical that women continue to be the gatekeepers and don't go after wealth. Wealth brings a level of expectation, right? If I invite you on my yacht, first of all, if I'm a single guy and I have a yacht, I'm not just inviting you, I'm inviting 20 women. Because I know for a fact, if I just invite you, you're going to feel special and you're not going to want to put out, right? So I'm going to invite 20 women so they're all competing for me, right? They're throwing it at me. Pretty soon there's strip teases going on everywhere. And they're like, look at me, look at my moves, look at my stuff, right? Women need to stay out of those situations. They literally need to be one-on-one with a guy so they don't feel the competition, because women are massive competitors against other women. There's no solidarity amongst women. And guys know this. Why do you think guys go to clubs? There's a glut of women there. And clubs have ladies' night so that when the guys show up, the women are drunk. The women's is wasted.
I'm not saying much, but I'm agreeing basically with everything. Just even what I've seen, or even just dating. You know, I didn't have a lot of dating experience before you.
Yep.
But it just, you know, it's just, as far as dating, there's a certain point where when you're so young too, all you can afford is the coffee date. And, you know, I understand what these women are trying to do and saying, you know, your value, if you raise your value, it's kind of like in business, right? If you price yourself so low, is someone going to actually value what you have to offer? But does that apply in the dating market?
Yeah, and women have intrinsic value because they bring the goods, right? Women have what men want. Simple. Guys don't care about women's income. Guys don't. The right man won't care about your income. Now, that doesn't mean you can't do what you've done and develop a business and develop a very nice income and utilize that for our family and do the things that we do and that kind of thing. You know, there's nothing wrong with that. However, I actually told you early on in our relationship, if you wanted to quit you had 3 jobs at one point. You had 3 part-time jobs. And I said, if you want to stay home, you can. And you did. You chose to stay home, and there was only one aspect of it that I said you have to continue to improve yourself, right? Whether it's going to the health club, going to yoga, doing, reading, you have to continue to improve yourself. You can't just sit at home and watch the soaps. That'll date me. Mm-hmm. Did you watch the soaps today? Yeah, General Hospital. That'll really date me.
Yeah.
Did The Young and the Restless? That one lasted a lot longer, so I might sound more hip and young.
How do you even know about them?
Well, they were on the TV all the time.
On your TV, apparently.
Oh, yeah. My mom would turn them on, and they'd just play in the background.
Oh, those were just...
If I went over to my friend's house, they were playing on their mom's TV.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ugh. Anyways.
Well, when you're a mom at home alone all day, what do you do now? You listen to podcasts, right?
Yeah, but I don't listen to people. I don't listen to bad relationships.
There was no podcast back then.
Yeah, well, I had the option of watching like when school was out and stuff, and I just could not stand listening to soap operas in the background.
Good.
It was just
Tara, don't be so
horrible.
judgy of all the other women.
I'm judgy of the show. Anyways, okay, so we were talking about entitlement, and then it moved into dating. I believe, especially at a certain socioeconomic level, you need to start with coffee and going for a walk. If you're just relegating yourself to a nice restaurant all the time, you're not going to see each other in a dynamic where you can start seeing them engage with someone other than, now it's great. If they treat the waiter well, that's important. It's helpful to see, but when you're on a walk, you get to see how the person responds to the dog that barks at them, the kid that runs in front of them. I guess people are always...
Well, get this. Say a woman says, let's go out, and a woman is forward enough to say, would you take me to a restaurant? But she says a restaurant that hopefully the guy doesn't want to go to, right? Like she says, would you take me to McDonald's, right?
Yeah.
And like if you said that to me, because when we met, you had Pop-Tarts in your car, and I was like, what's that? And you're like, Pop-Tarts, you want one? Strawberry.
Hey, and I showed that I was willing to share.
You were.
Yes.
And it was impressive. But I was like, you shouldn't be eating that crap,
Yeah.
And when you wanted to go out to eat, I took you to the Olive Garden.
Ooh,
right?
Unlimited bread and salad. Not sponsored by Olive Garden yet.
Bellissimo. Benite. Just making up words now.
Yep.
So, I didn't take you to Burger King. I didn't take you to McDonald's, But I didn't take you to Ruth's Chris Grill, the best steakhouse in Minneapolis. I didn't take you there, right? It was middle of the road to me. Olive Garden was middle of the road, right? To you, Olive Garden was the best restaurant you'd ever been to. So you got to see, I upgraded, right? I upgraded your thought process right there. I didn't know I was doing that. I didn't know your family had never been there, right? I didn't know that maybe Burger King, McDonald's, whatever was a standard.
No, the local family restaurant was more the standard.
Perkins, the local family restaurant, whatever, right?
Yeah.
I didn't know any of that because I wasn't asking you, what's the best restaurant you've ever been to.
Actually, this is an important note too. I realized fairly recently, that you actually did a lot of things to raise my standards, and then it actually became a level of expectation. And
well, it's something I expect for myself too. I spare no expense on good food, right? I'm not saying buy the most expensive food you can buy, but I'm saying don't buy cheap, crappy stuff, because it comes out, right? It comes out in your, not only in your, from your pores into your sweat and your you know, whatever, but it comes out in the health of your entire body, your thought process, your capability of thinking, right? I mean, one can of pop suppresses your immune system for 4 hours. So we wonder why America is so sick, right? We wonder why there's so much obesity. Your immune system actually is part of the process that keeps you fit, keeps you thin, processes where things go in your body. And if you shut it down, you're going to get fat and you're going to get sick. So
yeah, so I think that was important to notice even for me, that my standards had really been raised, and therefore even the necessity of how much income we have coming in needs to be at another certain minimum. I think it's a correlated topic, which is why
living within your means and doing the best you can within your means. You're not always in control of how much money you make. You know, and you've learned that, right? You're running a business where it depends on the public, but the whole world could come to your education site, right? But you've got to get them there. So you're not 100% in control of your income.
Right.
You could put out the best marketing campaign and everybody could choose not to show up.
Yeah, it's like a joke you think is funny in your head, and then you deliver it, and you're like, oh, okay, that wasn't as funny
Nobody
as
laughed.
I thought. Yeah, marketing is very similar. You just keep testing. Yeah, so I think it does help clarify some things as far as, you know, I think women do get a really bad rap for, you know, the sense of entitlement. I've noticed it in myself, and I think I'd have to do some further investigating of whether it's a standard or entitlement, and it is kind of a disease in a way. You know, a disease is something that has its own trajectory. It has its kind of objectives.
Yeah, disease is something that's out of control, that's growing out of control and taking over the host organism, right?
And I think that certainly is going on in our society. And, you know, especially if so many people were raised with what resulted as an entitlement mentality, that's really ingrained. You know, that's deeply ingrained. And it's kind of scary.
Well, people aren't raised with entitlement mentality. It's literally in the programming based upon how they are treated as they're growing up. Right? So it becomes part of the overall hardware of the person. It's still software. It can still be worked through, right? It can still be reprogrammed. But sometimes it becomes so ingrained and so embedded that it literally is part of the hardware.
I don't remember the name of the book, but there's a book about the generations and how there's basically these 4 evolutions of they keep repeating through the eons. And you could, I'm sure, relate it back to even astrology and cycles and so forth. And so the example of what would be this entitled mentality would be the Roaring 20s generation. And they're just, you know, wealth was relatively flowing, and then the Great Depression hit, or it's like post World War I, just right after that. And so then there was a boom in the economies, but then relatively shortly after that was the Great Depression, World War II, and so while they got to live the high life for a while, then reality hit.
So it's the axiom, I forget the whole thing perfectly, but it's the axiom of hard times breed strong men. Strong men make easy times breed weak men bring harder times. It creates kind of war and different things like that, or depression, that kind of thing. So even the colloquialisms within our society lay that on men's shoulders. Okay? And men take it on. Real men take it on. And that is how you you evaluate. Is your guy capable? Is he hardworking? Is he a natural provider? Does he want to do things for you innately? Not like it's an afterthought that he has to run around the car and open your door. He's already there. Not that it's an afterthought that he's walking so far behind you, he has to run to get to you to open the door. He's going through the door first and holding the door for you. Now that's actually the most polite way to do it, because as a guy walks into a space, he's assessing the environment, right? Not just opening the door and pushing the woman in first because, you tell me how it is in there because I don't want to go in there if it's scary, right? Mm-hmm. So a real man will step through the door and hold it open because he is assessing what's going on. Not that we have to be paranoid, but it's a natural thing, right? You knew from the beginning of our relationship when we're walking down the street, you're on the building side, I'm on the road side. Now that's a thing online where people go, real men make sure their women do this. They're protecting. Well, that was just natural for me. Mm-hmm. Right? I scared my dad once when I was a kid. My parents were going through a walk in the woods, right? We had trails behind our house in this woods area. And my parents were going through, and I ran ahead and I hid behind a tree. And I was 5 years old, maybe. And as my parents came up, they were walking and talking, and my dad had picked up a stick or something and he was walking with it, and I jumped out with my best bear voice, right? And I screamed like a bear, right? And my dad, the stick went into both hands and he jumped in front of my mom and he went, ah, because I scared the living crap out of both of them, right? But it was instinctual. My dad jumped in front of my mom, mm-hmm. right? Now, I saw that my whole life. I saw my dad taking care of things. My dad wasn't always there to play, but he was taking care of things, and that's what I saw, and that's what I learned. That's what a man is, right? A man provides first the basic needs. And if there's any extra above and beyond, that's fabulous. Mm. But it's not guaranteed. And men know this intrinsically,
Your mic just went with the seatbelt.
Oh, sorry, everybody. That probably was a little bit noisy.
All right, maybe a good point to sign off anyways.
Well, it is, right? We're destined, but we got to go build muscle.
That's right. All right, have a good one, everybody.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.